Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good whatever time of day it is. Thank you for tuning in to Conversations with Dr. Don. And I know you're wondering what that opening sign was, free hugs. And when you hear my guest and see him, you will see why the sign says free hugs. It's a personification of free hugs. And there's a story behind that too. And for you first-time viewers, Conversations with Dr. Don is an ongoing series of one-hour standalone talk shows where I interview interesting people like most of you out there about who they are as unique, one-of-a-kind individuals and about whatever it is we have decided to talk about. And tonight we're going to be talking about free hugs and a whole bunch of other stuff. And just experiencing this guy who was on the show a couple of years ago and meeting him out in the world and a few other places and how he is and something about you. It's just relaxing and peaceful. And thank you so much for coming on again.
Thank you.
Yeah. How are you feeling right now?
I'm feeling good. I just, the handshake after we've been to a hug relationship is a little awkward, but I'll work on
that. Delightful. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
As you know, our show goes in two major parts. First is bio stuff, and I'll ask you questions about who you are and where you came from and things like that. And if I ask you a question that you don't want to answer, you can tell me get lost or no, I don't want to answer that or whatever.
Okay.
But I'm looking forward to the hour that we'll have together. And I'm looking forward to when I can join you again at a Free Hugs celebration on what date is that?
May 5th.
May 5th.
Yep.
Downtown Portland.
Yeah, 10:30 in the morning at Skidmore Fountain, first in Ankeny. We'll start there, meet up with everyone, and just hug it up for a while.
It makes me grin just to think about it.
Well, it's a great way to spend some time.
And the last time we did it was at Pioneer Courthouse Square when I was there.
Right.
And you were on one corner and I was on the other. And time went by, and finally we've discovered we were on opposite corners.
We're on opposite sides, and there was something going on in the square, so that I didn't know you were on the other side, and you didn't know I was on the other side. But I think we both had a good time.
Oh, you betcha. Always.
Yeah.
So let's get going with, you said your name is Paul Spindell.
Correct.
Anything significant about that name?
It's been mine for 56 years now.
56?
Yeah.
With all that weight here.
I know. I know I don't look a day over 20 or so, but yeah, 56. I act like I'm probably 8, I guess, at some point in time. But no, the name not very significant. Paul, means little or small in many definitions, and so I tried to live up to that for the most part.
Okay. Here it starts. When and where were you born?
I was born in upstate New York, Binghamton, New York.
Mm-hmm.
And here's what will get funnier too. I was born on April Fool's.
April 1?
Yeah.
No wonder
I came out 2 months early just to be born on that date. I came out 2 months early. I figured that's a really good date, and I might as well start with that one. So
I love it. I love it.
look out, world, here I come. That's kind of how I did that.
You ready for your trick question?
I don't know. I guess we'll see.
Why were you born?
Well, I do think we all have missions in life, and it's taken me a while to figure out what mine is, but I've gotten pretty clear on it over the last few years, and I have 6-word mission that I try and live up to. It's to touch hearts, challenge minds, and incite laughter.
Will you say that again?
Touch hearts.
Yeah.
Challenge minds, and incite laughter. And I feel like if I'm doing those 3 things, I'm living good. So that's why I was born.
Yeah. That's great. I'm letting it really sink in. Yeah. And anything significant about your racial, national, or cultural heritage, or just plain American white bread?
I don't know about anything heritage-wise. I wasn't really raised in relation to the heritage. My family is Jewish, Polish, and Russian Jew, and yet I was never bar mitzvahed. I never went to a formal religion kind of thing. And I grew up on the East Coast, and then moved my way out here and fell in love with it out here, and have been here for 20 some odd years now, loving it. So.
Why did you fall in love with Portland? What was it about Portland that you fell in love with it?
Yeah, I think there's a couple things. One is the out of doors. You know, it's beautiful here, and to me, it's beautiful when it's raining too. I don't care. I mean, I love the idea that, you know, it may rain 7 times in a day, but it doesn't usually rain all day. You know, you can just keep doing whatever you're doing. You just pull your hood up or put your hood down or whatever and keep doing. So that's part of it. I love being outside, even if it's just sweeping my driveway. You know, just to be outside is kind of fun. I love the lack of humidity that there is in Portland versus the East Coast, where those summers there are a little rough. And then I think the people out here are kind of cool. You know, we are different out here, it seems like, and hopefully I've adapted to the cool people out here, and we seem to get along okay. And keep Portland weird, you know, kind of pops up. And
most anywhere you go, you're going to invite those kinds of people or spirits.
Right.
Hang out with you.
Yeah, I use an expression a lot. I talk about surrounding myself with cool people. And the more I do that, life seems to be pretty happy. So.
And we touched on your religious preference. Do you have one nowadays?
No religious preference to speak of. I think I'm pretty spiritual, but I don't practice a formal religion of any kind. I think to me it's really, there's a lot of things going on that I can't explain. And so I have a feeling there's some other things going on that I just have to smile at, you know, every now and then, and just go, you know, there's a spiritual connection there going on in the world.
You've said spiritual twice.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
You know, I guess for me it's that we are all connected. There's a spirituality in that. Every human being on this planet is connected. We're connected to the earth. We're connected to the creatures. We're connected to the plants. That's spiritual to me. And that doesn't have a religion associated with it, but some of the things that happen when I meet someone in one circumstance and then I meet somebody 3 blocks away 2 days later, and they knew the person that I met 2 days earlier. And somehow we make those connections, and it just amazes me. I mean, there's spiritual connections and that kind of thing. So
I'm not too clear what you define as spiritual or spirituality. And I get that, all sorts of responses, and none are invalid, depending on the person I'm talking to, where they're coming from.
Yeah, I think for me it's just the connectedness. The connectedness of all of us to ourselves and to each other and to the earth and to the creatures. And
so when you're feeling spiritual, you feel connected
absolutely
to Gaia or life or existence.
Right. And yeah, and that's kind of exciting to me. I mean, I just love the things that happen that you just say, wow. You know, you get to just go, wow. Because there's no other explanation for it besides some spiritual existence, some greater whole, if you will, and I don't know what that is, that makes me giddy.
I've been doing this for a number of years, and I've toyed with my own definition of spiritual and spirituality, and I've arrived at, let's see if I can remember the last idea I had about spiritual and spirituality, because I'm a recovering Catholic. I'm a humanist now, a humanist minister, of course. Spiritual is, we're trying to find a word to describe a phenomenon or something that's happening or an experience that's beyond describing with our cortex, because it's limiting. I can best describe it by if I see a baby in a basket in a supermarket and mom is pushing the basket and the baby turns and catches my eye and his or her little head follows me as I walk by, and there's a nakedness, an openness. I'm here. I trust you. The feeling that produces in my gut, in my spirit, is spiritual. There's no words to describe it. There are some things going on, I think you alluded to earlier in some of your comments, that are beyond characterization or description by our human limits of our brain.
So that really was a trick question, because you were asking me to define spirituality when you say it's beyond our ability to describe.
Maybe it was. Yeah. Okay. Shall we move on?
Sure.
Yeah. Your formal education.
I have one.
Okay.
It's
going to be that way the rest of the night.
Yeah, I'll just keep messing. My formal education, I went to, I got a bachelor's degree at a university in Virginia, James Madison University in the Shenandoah Valley of Virginia, a bachelor's degree in communications, and went to work for a while, and then went back to graduate school at the University of Maryland and got a master's degree in organizational behavior. I think at the time they were even calling it industrial psychology, but it's now called organizational behavior, why we behave the way we do in companies.
Any other education that's not formal that comes to mind for you, other than living and
I was going to say every moment, man, every day. So no other real, I studied Stephen Covey many years ago, and 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and that had an impact on me. I do a lot, some reading, and probably more reading now than I ever used to, so there's an education. But yeah, other than that, it's all really just life and looking at things that happen each day and saying, okay, man, these are all choice points, right? Everything we have is choice points, and what can I learn from these?
Yeah. And do you still work?
Of course. I hope so, anyway.
How do you feed yourself?
I work for myself. I do all sorts of management training, team building, leadership development kinds of things, supervisory training for different companies. And
you're a consultant?
I am a consultant, and I work with Portland State University in their Professional Development Center, teaching some classes there on leadership and conflict and some things like that. And then I also teach occasionally at Marylhurst and some community colleges, just a little bit here and there, everywhere. But I've changed how I look at work. I used to, when I first got out of graduate school, I believed that work was, bigger job, more money, bigger job, more money. That's the essence of success, and that's what you're supposed to do. And now I kind of believe that work is highly overrated. We should do it as little as we need to get by. I like that one better.
Yeah, refreshing.
It allows us to do the other things like being outside, and doing fun things like bicycle riding
and hugging people.
And free hugging. I get to do that a lot. I always carry this sign with me. It's with me all the time.
Okay. I wear mine on occasion, but not often as I would like to. I'm too busy wearing protest signs.
Well, that's an interesting thing, and one of the things I hope to talk about as we get into this is I protest too, and I've been to a number of anti-war protests and things like that, and one of the things about the free hugging is it's a for thing, not an against thing.
Yeah.
And it has a different energy to it because of that, I think. And so while I understand there'll be times in my life when I still need to protest against things, I really like doing something for something as well.
Okay. I'm slow with this because it's just delightful. I find I want to remember or experience something that you say other than just hear you a little more.
Well, thank you.
You betcha. Yeah.
It's interesting. I mean, even if you think about the war thing, I mean, to me, there's a difference between going to an anti-war march and going to a peace march. Just in the way we call them. Anti-war has all sorts of negative energy around it. Peace marches don't.
Okay.
Anyway, that's one of the ways I look at that too. So.
Okay.
I'll go with you to a peace march.
Okay. You have a partner, a boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, or anything?
Well, yes, I have a woman I call my sweetie, and we actually got married now a couple months ago in December.
Oh, really?
Yeah. We'd been together for quite a number of years, and took off on the last day of the earth, as the Mayans were saying, on December 21st. We were standing on a beach in Molokai, Hawaii, getting married.
Oh, how beautiful.
I said, if it's going to end today, let's do it on the beach in Molokai getting married. So it was wonderful.
Yeah, bet you got some fond memories of that.
She's a sweetheart, and I have some very fond memories of that day.
Yeah.
And that experience.
Is she spiritual also?
Oh yeah, I think we all are. And one of the...
To the extent that you are.
Yeah, I mean, I think she has, her spirituality comes in through photographs and words. She writes and she takes pictures. And that touches her soul and helps her connect with people in ways that are different than the ways I do it. she captures my free hugging events a lot. We'll talk about that maybe.
Of course, of course. So, any children or grandchildren?
Well, together we have three young ladies that are really fun, and we like hanging out with them. And one of the greatest gifts that they've given us, recently we were with a couple of them, and they told us that they think they'd even like hanging out with us if we weren't their parents. And I don't know that there's anything better you can say to a parent than wanting to hang out with you even if you weren't my parent. We laugh a lot when we're together, which is really good.
That's wonderful.
That's a happy thing.
Would you care to comment about your political persuasion? Left, right, center, off the chart, or unmeasurable?
I'm trying to think about what some of those are. You know, I would guess certainly if somebody, you know, talked to me for a while, they would hear some more left-leaning political views. But I also, you know, I also have to say that I'd like to believe in some probably more social left and fiscally middle. And I think you can do those together.
Okay. Your answers are very interesting. I want to keep going, but I want to cover enough to get to the stuff you want to talk about. Yeah.
Well, you might have to just invite me back.
You betcha. You betcha. Hopefully you want to come back too. Memberships in political, social, or civic organizations that are worth mentioning. Some people have memberships in tons, and some have memberships in one or none.
You know, I've been involved for the last several years with a local group called the Earth Wisdom Alliance.
Earth Wisdom Alliance.
And we do a lot of work around trying to help people look at how we're living with the earth and with each other. It's a local group based on a international group called the Pachamama Alliance.
Oh yes.
And Pachamama, you know, is Mother Earth. So that's been very powerful to me over the last several years in the work that we're doing to try and help people take a look at how we're being with each other and with Mother Earth. So that's a happy piece for me to get involved in.
Okay. Any persons from the past or alive today that you particularly admire or look up to? Any names come to mind for you?
Certainly, we have an opportunity to see again one of the most wonderful people that I've had the opportunity to listen to, and that's the Dalai Lama coming to Portland. You know, Gandhi comes to mind. The ability for these people to live peacefully in the midst of chaos around them, devastation around them, death around them, threats, etc., but to also always maintain a peaceful view of things and a calm about them is something I continue to want to work toward and aspire to.
Why do you think they can do that? They do that?
Practice. I think it takes practice. I think it takes going into the soul, as we were talking about, the spirit, and in each moment, you know, I mentioned choice points earlier, trying to figure out who do I really want to be, and making sure that in each moment I'm acting in a way that reflects that. Who do I really want to be? Do I want to, even if somebody casts a stone to me, do I want to cast a stone to them? Is that who I want to be? And being able to stop and breathe, if you will, and think about that, I think helps you get to that peaceful. But it takes practice. It takes practice, right?
Yeah. How do you see the mainstream media in America today, generally speaking?
You know, that's a hard one. I don't know that I've studied the media enough. I think we can all cast stones, certainly, at, you know, who's buying which media outlets and who owns which ones, and are they really speaking on behalf of the people, I think would be my greatest concern, and that's why I'm glad to be a part of this. And
that's the root of my question.
Yeah. I mean, that's the hard part. I mean, we've lost connection in so many ways with the people having a say. You know, it's a lot different than that. Now the corporations seem to have taken over a lot of what's going on. So thank you for doing what you're doing.
Thank you. What's most important nowadays to pay attention to? And I think we've got the answer already in what we've in our conversation so far. What's most important to pay attention to for you?
I have to start with me. You know, I have to start with really trying to keeps my head busy, but trying to continually look at how I am being with every human being I interact with. You know, there's an expression I hear a lot of people say. It was in some, you know, you hear it in different groups of people. They let there be peace on earth and let it begin with me. You know, I can't expect there to be peace on earth if I push past you and knock you over while I'm walking down the sidewalk or whatever to rush to the street corner. You know, if I don't have peace within me. So I think it's really important that I start with me before I try and change anybody else. And all. So it's always so easy how we think we always know best what everybody else should be doing.
Yeah.
Right? But what if we start here? Try and get our own act together.
How did you get to be the way that you are?
Well, you know, I mean, I've got 56 years of stuff. And we, you know, so you certainly you're a product of your experiences, right? There's a large piece to that.
Yeah.
But I also think that there's a place where you get to say, okay, so what? I was raised in this neighborhood. This is what happened to me as a kid. This is why I do this. You know, whatever. There's all that. But then you have the opportunity to say, okay, how do I choose to be today? How do I choose to be? I could choose to be late coming to the show tonight and say, oh, I got in traffic. Or I could choose to be early to make sure I'm here on time. There's choice points that we get to make, and I have to take responsibility for mine. So that's what I do. There was a book years ago called Life's Little Instructions, I think it was. And I had a poster of it, and one of the things on there said, "Stop blaming others. Take responsibility for every area of your life." Mm-hmm. Oh, you do that, and it changes things.
There is a need for me to be aware of the contributing factors that has me living my life today, and the influence that it has on me. And you can look at my negative comments about corporations, for example, and the super rich, and say, oh, you're just whining, or why don't you focus on just being happy? Well, I need to look at those things that are interfering with my enjoying my existence,
sure,
so that I can do something about it.
Right.
It isn't all, sometimes I get upset with people like you. I say people like you because that was tongue-in-cheek.
It's okay.
There are a few people like that, and if we pray hard enough, we can change the world. It's though prayer is the only thing that's of critical importance, and that will automatically have those people who control my life now by daily existence, and unless I do something about them, I can pray till the cows come home.
Right. But what I would say is those are choices you get to make. To me, it's all about choice points.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I can choose to go stand in front of the White House every day and speak my mind to anybody who's willing to listen. I can choose to do that. I can choose to write letters to my congressman every day. But I get to choose those. Yeah. And so, so I'm not saying just pray and everything will be okay. What I'm saying is I have to start here and try and get my own house in order, if you will. At the same time, I have to do the things that I feel are important for the bigger house.
To walk the talk.
That would be good.
Okay. It's almost time to take a break. Let's see what else can I ask you. What's right with America today? What's right in a few words?
Well, you know, gosh, I'd like to say hope. I think there can still be hope, right? That we can continue to look at ways of doing things in a productive and positive way. You know, I think that's really cool. So that's where I go. You know, I'd hate for all of us to just give up and say, oh yeah, this is just the way it's going to be, and we just have to go along. No, I think there's hope, and I think there's brilliant people in this country, and there's a lot of very good-intentioned, well-intentioned people in this country, and I do assume good intent for most people in this country. And you put all those together, that gives me hope that we can continue to work on the issues that we need to work on. You know, and every day if I read the media, you know, watch TV or read the paper, I get a little, you know, I can get in a funk, but but I'll choose to take the high side and say, I think there's hope.
Okay, what's wrong with America today in a few words?
Well, you mentioned the corporations. I mean, you brought that up. It's something I'm trying to do more and more about in my own life, as well as talk to other people about. You know, I'm starting to see a disconnect between, remember when we used to say, country by the people, for the people, and of the people?
Yeah.
And I think we're missing out on that one a whole lot now. And you know, the way the organizations, companies, corporations control things, the way they pay no taxes, yet they still control so much of what's done in Washington, D.C. and in the state legislatures is very sad to me.
Well, if you pray long and hard enough, won't that change? You can ignore my question sometimes.
It's a rhetorical. Is that a rhetorical question?
It's silly. We were serious for too long there.
Yeah, we have to get happier.
Yeah, yeah. So let us take a break for a few minutes, gather our wits, and come back and talk about free hugs and other stuff.
Oh yeah, that'll make me joyous.
Can we take a break there, Mr. Director? Okay, we are back. Thank you for staying tuned. And for you viewers who missed the opening of the show, Conversations with Dr. Don is an ongoing series of one-hour standalone talk shows where I interview interesting guests, like most of you out there, about who they are as unique, one-of-a-kind individuals, and whatever else comes up in the conversation. And I'm having a really good time here with Paul Spindell, who's deucedly interesting. And over the years, I've interviewed all kinds of people, and I think all of my guests can believe that I'm straight up and honest, and I may be a polish the apple a little now and then, but by and large, I'll take my lumps for being honest with what's going on. And when I say complimentary things about you, it's because that's what I see, and that's being honest. And it's just a pleasure hanging with you as we're talking now, and feeling you look at me and feeling you being available to hear me. And in this area I know very little about, but I have a sense about the spiritual connectedness that can occur between two human beings.
Absolutely.
Thank you again.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So shall we go with some of the questions? I sometimes cheat and I'll ask a guest to send me a few questions to ask. This saves me oftentimes from spending too much time at the computer doing research about who you are and what the topic is. So I have an idea where you're coming from with your questions, then I can take off from there and provoke you some other way.
Great, I look forward to that.
Yeah. First question, how did you get started in this hugs thing? We talked about it a little bit. You got a few more words to say about that?
Absolutely. So the free hugging thing started, for me, somebody sent me a video of some people doing free hugging. So I mean, I can't say I invented it, right? I didn't. If you trace it back, some people say that it started with a guy who was living in Australia at the time, and he landed in an airport and wasn't greeted by anybody. And he decided that he didn't want that to happen to anybody else. So he started coming back and holding up free hug signs in the airport in Australia. Anyway, so I saw a video of these people doing that, and I again was thinking, this is something that I can do, that it's for something, it's a positive energy, it's a good thing, rather than, you know, protesting against something or doing whatever. So so I was a little nervous the first time I did it because I didn't know what would happen. You know, and so I did it the first time up in the park blocks up by Portland State University. Mm-hmm. And I just wanted to see what happened for me and what happened with people. You know, I didn't want to do what in the video, the people, I think it was in Italy, the two people who they were videoing, they were really aggressive and they were like going after people and saying, hug me, free hugs, free hugs. And that to me was not the energy that I wanted to do, man. I wanted to be more sedate, if you will, and I just stood there, but I made sure I tried to gain eye contact with people and smile. And so that's what started me on this, was just an idea to want to try it. And it's become addictive in the most positive sense of the word.
So yeah, I need to do it more often.
It's interesting now. In many situations, I find myself, just with the way the world is going, the way things are happening, that I'll have been inside all day. I kind of feel the need to go do some free hugging. So that's why, you know, the sign that we have here, I carry that with me all the time. It's in my briefcase, and so if I am somewhere, if I'm in downtown Portland, let's say, and I have an hour and a half between meetings or 2 hours between meetings, I just find a street corner and pull out the sign for a little while. Because it's such a good energy. I mean, I end up going through the rest of the day happier than I was going into it, because, you know, I might have gotten, you know, a whole bunch of hugs and met some nice people. And
would you guesstimate, in the summertime, for example, how many times a week would you solicit or offer free hugs? Once a week or once a month? Or
it's probably, I would guess, you know, probably twice a week.
Twice a week?
Yeah, in different places. Usually just by myself, though, because I never plan. I often don't plan when I'm going to go do it. I just have, you know, some time and got my sign, and I'll do that. So it's hard to really call your friends and say, okay, you know, I'm doing this. A couple times a year I do some planned things, like the May 5th one. Yeah. That's part of an international thing. That's called Global Free Hug Weekend.
Oh, wow, man.
With some people around the world who are doing that. And somehow I got designated to be in charge of Portland for that one. So that's a formal event, you know, formal, if you will. So I already have, you know, 15 people or so who said they're going to come to that. So we'll just see it now that it's on you know, TV. Maybe we'll have a whole bunch more. I don't know. So.
Well, I'm not sure this will be broadcast by then. It may. I don't know.
We'll see.
Now. But it's going to be available on my website.
Okay.
In another day or so. Okay.
Good. I'll direct people to your website.
Yeah. Okay.
But it's just, it's been a fascinating adventure for me. When I first started, I thought about, I wanted to count how many hugs I got. So, you know, because we're into such measurement in society where we, you know, if I can get 30 hugs in an hour, well, the next time I come, I want to get 35 hugs in the hour. It was about the number. And that only lasted a really short period of time, because then I started realizing that each day that I go do free hugging, I'm probably there for a particular person. There's somebody that I hug in a given day that really needed a hug today. And that person may be the reason I was there that day. And it's not about the number at all. And that's kind of fun to keep an eye out for those situations.
It comes to mind for me now, with what you just said, I've got maybe 30 or 35 different protest signs, you know? And occasionally, on rare occasion, someone will see my sign and stop and come over and thank me, and usually they'll put a hand on me. And occasionally, there's tears in the eyes. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And they just can't. Those are the moments, you see.
Right.
Yeah.
Very captivating.
Yeah.
And there's a number of people, I mean, you know, again, I don't do numbers anymore. I couldn't even tell you how many people have thanked me, and all I'm doing is standing there giving them a free hug.
Yes.
Just thank you for doing what you're doing. A lot of people have said that.
Can I report back to you in the future my progress in increasing the frequency of my offering free hugs?
Oh, absolutely. I'm really sorry that I missed you in the get-together at Pioneer Square that time, but I heard you did get to meet one of the other people that I know that I hug with occasionally, and you guys were on that side of Pioneer Square.
Fascinating. And I was going around in my head, how is it she's getting more hugs than I'm getting? And I thought she's a pretty woman, what is it, in her approach, and I'm going through in my head how it is. And I thought, whatever she's got, whatever she's doing, I'm going to get
to work on that.
Yeah.
Well, you are a pretty good hugger. You know, and that's one of the things I think if you, for me too, I really wanted to make sure I give good hugs.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I mean, if you're doing free hugging, you can't just give like fair hugs. You got to give good hugs. And, you know, so there's no A-frame hugging, you know, none of those little, with the pats or whatever, no sideways, you know, kind of thing like that. But it's got to be a good hug. And those are really cool. Can I show this one just for a second?
Of course, of course.
So the young lady in my life who I'm married to, she made me a book for my birthday of all sorts of free hug pictures. And this one is an example to me of, this is actually the cover of the book. And look at my face and how happy I am and joyful in giving a hug to somebody and receiving a hug back. That's spiritual. We were talking about spirituality before. That's spiritual to me. You know, I don't know if it gets any better than that.
Well said.
So, so yeah. So that's kind of why I do this. I think it's really funny. Oftentimes people ask me, they say, "What are you doing?" I went out to the airport. I did free hugging in the airport, in the terminal. I've done it there a few times now. Well, and you end up having to talk to the police there. And the first time there, the guy came over to me and goes, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Well, I'm giving free hugs to people." And he said, "Well, why are you doing that?" And I said, "Well, because I love giving hugs, and I think there's a lot of people who could use hugs." And he said, "Oh." He said, "Are you going to be here long?" I said, "I don't know. It depends on how it goes." I said, "Are you asking me to leave?" He said, "No. You can hug here if you want." Anyway, and he stood over about 30 feet away from me and watched me hug people for a while to make sure I wasn't doing anything bad or whatever. But, I mean, that's as simple to me as it gets. I love giving hugs, and I think a lot of people could use them.
You gave him something more than you just said. Because the way he approached you and what he said, I'm guessing what's going on inside of him, until you were straightforward and open and honest with him, and your exchange has him examining whether he's consciously aware of it or not. And this guy's kind of weird, but I don't know. Can I do that? But if he's thinking of doing it, anyhow, he got something from you.
Well, and that's why, so just what you're describing, if you go back to my mission that I was telling you earlier about, the middle part is challenge minds. And I think that's what is going on in his mind when I explained to him that. And it happens for a lot of people. They're wondering, like, wow, what are you doing? Because this isn't normal, if you will. It's not a natural thing for me to see somebody with a free hug sign. I don't know what bucket to put that in. I've had people come up. I had one of my favorite stories. I was in Pioneer Square in Portland, and a street person, a lady, came up to me and she said, "Do you need money?" And I said, "No." "Why?" And she said, "Well, you're doing this. I figured you need money." I said, "No, I have free hugs." And she said, "So you don't want any money?" I said, "No." She goes, "Do you have any other expectations for these hugs?" And I said, "No, just a good hug." So she ended up hugging me. And then she walked away. She says, "I haven't had a hug in years that hasn't had some expectation associated with it."
Oh, jeez.
It was just, whew. And then she ended with, "But if you need any money, I could probably get you some money."
She did, really?
And I mean, it just touched my heart, because I just, you know, I can't imagine the world she lives in terms of not having hugs for years where there's something not connected to it. And I said, "No, I just want a good hug, that's all." So I just love the people I meet, the stories that come from them.
Hank Robb, Dr. Hank Robb, fellow clinical psychologist, he's also a humanist. And Hank is a notorious hugger. I can't think of another adjective. I don't ask him on a regular basis for a hug. Intermittent reinforcement, you know, or whatever. And occasionally when I ask him, he just enfolds you and holds you with no expectation. It's hard to describe. Because I know when I ask him for a hug, I'm going to get a hug.
You're going to get a hug.
Way beyond what most people call a hug.
Right. And it doesn't have to be a hard
spiritual.
hug.
No, it doesn't have to be.
No, but it can be a connected hug. You know, one of the expressions that I use sometimes with people is to be able to hug till relaxed. Hug till relaxed. Because if you think about it, most times when we go into hugs, our shoulders are kind of up here. But if you can just take some breaths and just stay with it, and your shoulders come down, then you're hugging till relaxed. And that's an intimate hug. And that's a connection.
I should pay you for this. I'm learning so much now.
Well, we could also talk about, one of the things that's, this is a little hug lesson, right? So we usually lead with our right arms. Many of us are right-handed, I guess, and we lead with our right arm, and we hug people. Well, that's taking us away from each other's hearts. And what I try and do, and I learned this from others, is to hug this side, because that lets our hearts touch. But that's different because most people aren't used to that, so you kind of have to angle it as you're coming in, so you don't bump noses or something. But you come in and you get heart-to-heart touch.
The size of my nose. That's
right. We have to do that. So keep an eye on that. So that's the heart-to-heart side, and that's another connection. Somebody actually told me the reason they think not just that we're right-handed, but that we've been trained culturally to protect our hearts, and so we keep them back. And I said, oh, that's not what hugs are about. Imagine if we started doing more of this in the world. More free hugs. Just imagine, I think, the energy shift. When you talk about spirituality, I think there'd be an energy shift.
Now you're getting kind of far out from it. We'll continue.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just saying it's possible,
The energy shift. Would you take a chance on saying something about that? What do you mean by energy shift?
It's hard to be angry with somebody if I just hug them. It's hard to consider wanting to go to war with someone if I just hug them. For me to beat them, for me to rape them, to just have a human connection in a positive way of a hug. And imagine if we walked the streets and did that to strangers who were willing. I don't force hug on anybody.
Of course not.
But I've never seen anybody leave one of my hugs unhappy. And generally when I see them leave, they're happier than when they came into the hug. So if you multiply that by lots of people, you'll see on May 5th if you come down to Skidmore Fountain.
Energy shift.
Absolutely.
Say a few more words about that. And maybe there's nothing more you can say about it. Energy shift.
Yeah, to me it's just shifting the energy away from self-interest. I think we have a lot of self-interest energy going on in the world. We have a lot of combative energy going on in the world. We have road rage, kinds of things. We yell at our neighbors, if their dog's barking or whatever. And to me, the positive energy that comes from hugs is one that can shift the energy of the larger population if more and more of us do it. So let me share with you one.
Okay.
So one of my first hugs, a gentleman walked up to me with his son, and his son was, maybe 4 or 5, 6 years old, but he was pretty short. And he goes, my son wants to know why you're doing this. And I said the same thing I'd already mentioned, that, I love giving hugs, and I think a lot of people could use hugs. And the son said, well, I really love hugs. So I asked him, I said, well, would you like to hold my sign? And he said, no. And I said, well, would you like a hug from me? And he said, yes. So I knelt down and I gave the son a hug. And as I was getting up, the dad said, yeah, I don't hug him anymore. He's too old for that. Now that's an energy. And I think the energy would be different if he would hug his son. I even told the dad, at the risk of, I guess, my personal health, I said, that's how you've been. That doesn't mean that's how you have to be.
His reaction?
His reaction was a little, he was stuck a little because he didn't know what to say. And the poor kid's 5 years old or so, and to think that his dad's not going to hug him anymore because he's too old for that. I'd love to shift that energy. And I'd love to be a part of that. So.
Maybe you were.
Maybe I was.
We can go on and on. Let's see where else we can go.
Oh, man.
Yeah. How often and where do you do it? What are people's reactions? Can you share with us some of the stories you heard from people? Tell us about Global Free Hug Weekend. Say a few more words about Global
Free Hug Weekend. Started a few years ago. There's a lady in Chicago. I think you can probably now, go on Facebook and look for Global Free Hugs, and probably all sorts of other social media ways to find it. But she started it in Chicago years ago, and she now signs up people from all around the world. She posts it, and so people in all sorts of cities in the U.S. and all sorts of cities around the world agree that on that weekend we're going to put together hugging events free hugging get-togethers, if you will, and again, try and see what we can do to shift some of the energy, at least for the people who participate.
Do you talk to her or email?
She and I stay in contact via email and stuff. I've never actually talked to her. That's an interesting thing. I might need to try and do that. Mm-hmm. But we connect electronically. And this will be my 3rd year of trying to do things in Portland for that weekend.
I got a provocative question. I'm not sure where it's going to go.
Okay.
We connect electronically.
Yes.
And connect, I don't think in the sense that we're talking now.
Right.
Electronically, that's an impossibility.
It's not a connection. The same way we connect. I mean, I had a hug at the airport, in fact, one time, from a woman. It was probably one of the most intimate experiences that I've ever had in my life. There was a connection there, and we barely said a word to each other. You know, it was just amazing. It was actually right after a policeman had talked to me, and the officer had just walked away, and this woman came up. She said, "Can I have a hug?" And I said, "Yeah." And we hugged, and she hugged till relaxed. She just didn't want to. You can tell when people want to end the hug, right? Their arms move. You can feel them. And she just was in it. And I, at one point, whispered in her ear. I said, "You know, you're a really good hugger." And she said, "You are too." And then I felt her arms open up, and I opened up, and she walked away to go get on a plane. Wow. I mean, she was a dear lady, and it was a wonderful connection. And I hope that I gave her something. Obviously, she needed that before she went on the plane to go do whatever she was doing.
Yeah. Yeah. So anybody who wants to can come to the Global Free Hug Weekend.
Yeah, I'm putting it together for Portland on Sunday, May 5th, 10:30 at Skidmore Fountain. Bring a sign. I don't have, I'll have some with me, but I won't have enough potentially for everybody. You can tell this one, if you look at it, it's a little worn around the edges. It's been involved in a lot of hugs.
Okay. And now we have a few minutes more, environmental sustainability. Shall we talk some more about hugs, or shall we go into something else now? What's your pleasure?
Well, I can talk about hugs for days, so and do hugs for days too. So either one you want to go, I can talk about the environment's very important to me, and we just had Earth Day a few days ago. Isn't it interesting that we have to name a day for Earth Day? I mean, if you just think about that, I guess I'm shifting now, so I'm going. Sure. Maybe I should take this down now. We're getting it. Well, by the way, equal opportunity Spanish. For my Spanish-speaking friends, there's free hugging in Spanish. Hugs free, but okay. So here's the deal. Isn't it interesting that we save a separate day, 365 days a year. We pick one day and we say, well, that's Earth Day. Why aren't we practicing Earth Day every day? Wouldn't that be an interesting thing? So I mean, I want to have hope around this. Here's another little. You get me started, so you got me started.
Sure, of course.
One of the things that's interesting to me, I mean, I know there's a lot of terrible things going on in the world with bombings and shootings and all these kinds of things. And I don't mean to diminish the importance of those things in our society and everything. But we have scientific proof now that I don't think anybody's arguing with about what's happening to the Earth. And we're going to continue to see, I think there's already been some examples, we're going to continue to see massive events around the Earth that kill and injure lots of people that are related to how we're taking care or not of the environment. And it doesn't seem like we're paying attention to that. It doesn't seem like we as a species, we as governments, are willing to be bold enough to make the changes that are necessary for us to live better with the Earth in a way that's going to be sustainable.
Why is what you said so? Why is that true?
We're very short-sighted, in my opinion. And we take easy fixes. And we have self-interest. Right? The biggest thing now and for the last several years has been about job creation. Job creation, job creation. And so what a great opportunity we have to make job creation around environmental sustainability. Let's create jobs that are working to do this. Let's train people to install solar panels on every public building, schools, on every school across the country. That would take a lot of people to do that. We'd employ a lot of people doing that.
Why aren't we doing that?
Because it's not as easy as saying, let's continue to do things the way we've been doing them. Let's just open up, more pipelines, and let's just, let's continue to use fossil fuel and do coal shipping and everything else, when those are the old ways, I'd like to think, and there's new ways we can be doing things, and we're just not putting the energy to them. And guess what? They're not going to pencil out as fast. Everybody's saying, well, solar power isn't, financially as good as fossil fuels right now. Well, that's because we're just starting.
People are making their decisions based on the information they have to consider when they're making a decision. So it seems to me that we're susceptible to being conditioned or given flawed or inadequate information such that we can arrive at decisions that support those people who are responsible for teaching us how to think and make decisions.
And back to the media connection and everything, right? I mean, we have an obligation to really try and understand what's going on and take actions. Again, starting with ourselves and how we behave, but really starting, for the good of, I really appreciate the Native American expression around 7 generations. That whatever we do, are we doing it in keeping in mind 7 generations from now? Because that changes your behavior. You think about things like that. But we are still focused on self-interest, was, how am I going to make enough money to get my next, new car or my bigger house or consume more, whatever, and it's that's going to lead to destruction, I think. That's going to lead to a lot of major problems.
Because people are considering Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Right.
And if I'm needing to figure out how to keep a roof over my head and feed myself, there isn't much time available for the kinds of things that you're talking about. The global responsibility.
Well, certainly. If I go to Maslow and I think about, physiological and safety needs and trying to do my house, that's one thing, to be able to have a house. Well, but it's also self-actualization, the higher needs, to go buy the bigger house, the newer house, the bigger car, the newer car. I already have plenty of house. Do I really need to go from 4,000 square feet house to a 10,000 square foot house? Do I need to buy the new, everybody's caught up in buying the newest cell phone that comes out, when their old cell phone worked perfectly fine.
Why is that?
Because we have to, we try and compete with our friends to have the coolest, newest toy and everything. And we've gotten carried away with so much of this
Why
stuff.
do we need to compete with our friends?
I think, are you the psychologist?
You know I am.
Right. So you would probably know more about that than I do. And I just think, here's one of the things. I was talking to a guy who said something really interesting to me the other day. He goes, we shouldn't worry about the earth, because the earth will take care of itself. Civilization may not be around to live on it when it goes through the changes that it needs to go through to regenerate itself, but the earth will take care of itself.
And I don't think you can pray hard enough to have the earth take care of itself.
Well, no, but it's an interesting comment to me, because, I do think that we have such opportunities to, for Mother Earth, I'd like to do good things. But a lot of what we want to do good things for Mother Earth is so that we can continue to sustain civilian population, if you will, on this earth as well, in a productive way. And there's a lot of work we have to do on that.
The time is running out. Now, do you have a final thought or comment for the viewing audience that you can leave them with what went on, we talked about now? Any else that comes to mind? This is your final, last chance.
This is the big one,
Camera 3.
And I can look right into the camera. I think the biggest thing is really taking advantage of the fact that you have choice points in so much of what you do every day in life, in how you treat yourself, how you treat each other, how you treat Mother Earth. And rather than just going hither and yon through your days, try and make good, conscious, intentional choices.
Thank you.
We'll take it from there.
A choice point. I need to recognize more often what those choice points, as you named them, are. So let's prepare to stop, because I got 1,000 more questions for you and we need to stop. But I've enjoyed you so much.
Thank you. I've enjoyed being here.
Yeah. Keep your pens and pencils handy, because you may want to jot down something that we'll show you in the closing credits. But let's have a few public service announcements, Mr. Director. And there's a broadcast schedule for the people in Washington County who will be seeing this show. And the next PSA, to watch my shows on the web, go to www.donbaham.com, click on favorite links, and there's a couple hundred shows on there, all sorts of people I've interviewed, people not quite as delightful as my friend Paul. Yes, of course, delightful as my friend Paul. And the ACLU, I got to tell you about the ACLU. I know you know about the American Civil Liberties Union. Without the ACLU, our civil liberties would be down the tubes by now. So join the ACLU and call that number. I've been a member for over 40 years. And in other parts of the country that you're seeing this show, you can get my shows broadcast regularly by your local public access station. And go to www.pegmedia.org and learn how to do that. Next PSA, to learn how to end corporate personhood, go to www.movetoamend.org. Corporations are not persons, that's a fiction. And what else do we say? Oh, I got to thank you for watching this episode of Conversations with Dr. Don. And now my favorite thought for the day is KFC. Not that KFC, Dr. Don's KFC, not the Colonel's. Kind, friendly, and charitable. I like especially charitable. Be kind, be friendly, and be charitable. To you too. And you too. And Billo. And my wonderful crew. Thank you, guys.